Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. EXL NerveHub helps manage the hybrid workforce. My name is Mary Lou Joseph, and I'm a Director of Content Marketing here at Verint. It's my pleasure to welcome Sumit Taneja from EXL. EXL is a leading operations management and analytics company that helps clients look deeper to design and manage agile, customer-centric operating models that improve global operations, drive profitability, and enhance customer satisfaction. Sumit is Vice President and Global Lead for Insurance Transformation and Hyper Automation. In that role, he drives transformation leveraging Six Sigma, automation, analytics, and AI to drive superior business outcomes. Today, Sumit will talk about how EXL is leveraging Verint solutions to manage the emerging hybrid or digital workforce of both humans and robots. Thank you for sharing your story with us today, Sumit.
Thank you. So before I start, I've spent almost 20 years at EXL, and EXL is slightly older than my own tenure. EXL was incorporated in 1999. We are a $1 billion company now, with more than 31,000 people. Out of those, 5,500 in digital and analytics. But I think what I wanted to start with, EXL, when it started, we got acquired by Conseco, and as Conseco filed for bankruptcy, we bought ourselves back. But our heritage started with insurance. The second is when we bought ourselves back, and Conseco was going through this bankruptcy, we had to migrate all the jobs back to the US. But we had a strong insurance expertise, which we had established. What we thought at that time was, we have these great people, we need to retain them. We did not let anyone go, and got new business, and that's where you can almost say second chapter of EXL started. So our focus on employee has been always great. But second is also understanding how the market is going to evolve in future, having the vision which can really make the difference. So in 2005-06, our management realized that analytics in the future is going to play a large role. And that's where we set up our analytics practice, acquired a company called Inductus. And that has been a great success story for EXL. So our expertise in managing operations and analytics sort of got us in leadership position in all the verticals we were playing. But few years back, we realized digital is going to become extremely important. And data is going to be the real differentiator for our clients. And we have to be in a position to help our clients in making them more data-led businesses. And that's why our heritage of analytics and our foundation of digital, which we set up 4 years back, really comes to the foray, because in future, we believe we can work with our clients and transform them to become more data-led businesses. If you go to the next slide, what differentiates us is really our focus on the domain. And our domain focus, it started with insurance, but then we added healthcare, banking, retail, and horizontals like finance and accounting, which really has become our focus. And we believe you can only make the change if you understand the business. Second, our ability and our heritage in analytics, not just sort of playing around with data, but making sure that we are analyzing it, bringing insights, and then helping the insights to act in operations. Talent, I already mentioned, we have always focused on the talent, and that will always be a differentiator for us. And lastly, our ability to think what's going to happen in future. So I mentioned about analytics, our foundational setup for digital, and then now focusing to bring all of this together for our clients is something which we believe we are always trying to think ahead in time. Lastly, I will just want to mention one of the accreditations which we have got from our analyst, which is from Forrester, which is about insight-driven BPO, because just driving operations is not enough. You have to embed analytics, AI, and automation to make it really a value-added services for our clients. If you go to the next slide, what I wanted to share today was really some of the insights we have looked as we look behind and how things have progressed and how we should think about future, because sometimes you can connect the dots looking behind and not forward. So if we sort of look at 90s, when the flip phones were there, touchscreen got invented, some of the companies tried it, but that did not create a smartphone. It needed something different. Similarly, in today's date, when we look at data, cloud, automation, and AI, companies have sort of tried it in the last few years and tried to implement those in their processes, but that hasn't resulted in data-driven automated enterprise. If you go to the next slide, I think our second insight is how speed is really going to differentiate our clients. And this speed is about serving the customers. Now, if you have a differentiated speed, you can impact customer experience, you can be far more efficient and drive better business outcomes. Let me try to explain that in an example. If you are looking at new business, if you can get the quotes much faster, so if you are taking 15 days in a commercial insurance scenario, if you can get that within 24 hours, your chances that those quotes will get converted will increase 20 to 30%, and that's extremely important in today's day to generate new business revenue. Our third insight was how do we sort of look at getting the organizations to create some kind of a formula which people can sort of use to get to the next stage. In the next slide, what we are trying to create is a formula for success. And what we believe formula for success is, today most organizations are operating in a human operating system. Human operating system in our sort of context is we have processes which got established over the last 20, 30 years. There is technology, a mix of legacy systems, modern systems, but the processes is almost like continue to remain the same. And human role is to ensure that they are able to process a customer request or a transaction in the best possible manner. If we have to move this to a more AI operating system, you really need a good combination of AI, a different process flow, a technology which supports it, and a very different human role. Let me expand that a bit. If we use AI in upstream, that is at the time when we are getting the customer request, whether it is on a call, there is document, email, if you can convert that into a structured data, you will have a much better data which can flow into your processes. And you can now design a new process based on the data flow. You can embed analytics to make that decision and house all of this into cloud so that you get the agility and flexibility of cloud, and you can integrate all the new services which are available today from the partners. But what happens to the human role? Human role really changes to become more of a people who would have an oversight. They will monitor the AI models, they will monitor the automation, they will ensure that they are keeping a check on the biases which AI might have, and use their contextual domain knowledge to ensure that the processes are yielding the right customer outcomes, and the customer experience becomes the greatest standpoint. Now, all of this is going to give you speed, and speed is going to be a big differentiator. Speed, in our view, will be driven by how this data flow can be streamlined. If you go to the next slide, but if you change this human operating system to an AI operating system, what will happen? You will have far more digital workforce in your operations, and a number of studies have happened, and the prediction is anywhere between 50 to 70% of the workforce will be changed to a digital workforce, but they will be humans as well as they will be digital workforce, which should be sort of working in tandem. If you go to the next slide, and I'll try to summarize what our insights what our experience has been. So the 4 insights, I think the speed is going to be extremely important. How we embed AI in the upstream to enable the AI operating system, how we leverage data and cloud to make the whole experience much more agile and flexible. And lastly, there will be a increase in the digital workforce. Now, when we talk about serving our clients, we believe there are 2 things we need to do to support this change in direction for the businesses and make them data led. One is use our hyper automation COE, which will help clients to move from human operating system to AI operating system. But the second is, even if you move, you really need something to manage this interplay between a digital and human workforce, because your workforce will now be more hybrid. It will not be only a human based. And you need to embed intelligence with analytics and AI. If you go to the next slide, and I'll expand more on EXL NerveHub, which is really our endeavor to create a holistic solution which can help clients to manage their entire operations end-to-end customer lifecycle. And we believe in a role of an operating leader, there are many facets in operations which needs to be managed, and those facets can be performance, it can be employee or people related, customer outcomes. Digital transformation is an ongoing thing now, and how they're driving innovation in their businesses. But what I will highlight today is how human and bot management or hybrid workforce is going to be critical for you to really have a holistic view of your operations. If you go to the next slide, uh, NerveHub really is a combination of transactional engine, but it combines all of that data into a holistic sort of system. And when we talk about hybrid sort of workforce management, what we have leveraged is Verint's Work Manager, which we call as Smart Work Manager 2.0, which is basically a work management solution, but we link whatever is being done by the humans as well as the digital workforce into a single unified work management system. And that ensures that we are able to not just manage the work which is done by humans, but also with the digital workforce. Because typically in a process, you may have 10 steps, right? And 5 might be done by humans, 5 might be done by digital workforce. But when I'm talking about a customer request, it's really an end to end, and you need to know whether the customer request was fulfilled on time or not. If you go to the next slide, uh, the real solution of user manager, and you would see in the screenshot on the right that you have some people who have logged in into the system, some bots who have logged in into the system, and you are able to see how many of the bots are operational, how many of the humans are operational, what their performances are. If one of the bot stops because of any reason, I can go down, click, restart the bot if the bot has failed, or find out what's the reason. Is the volume being allocated? What we have implemented is, if you get, say, a transactional volume of 100, the system will automatically understand the turnaround time requirements from the customer, and the skill sets of bots and human, and then automatically route the work to the right queue so that it can be processed within the SLA which we have committed to the customer. And an operations manager can just sit back and relax and just look at the information which is provided to him and ensure that everything is working on plan. If you go to the next slide, I'll just talk about one use case or a case study which we have worked with our one of the largest utilities client. Our journey really started with them, a small, I would say, pilot implementation of 14 bots in one of the service areas. Once the client was convinced that that's going to be their direction, we started to ramp up. We added analytics, we added AI into the automation sort of journey. But what we also quickly realized when we ramped up from 14 bots to 200 bots, you have to really manage them in a way that the customer request is fulfilled. And that required a solution like a smart work manager, which could give me the ability to schedule the work between human and bots, manage the whole workload, ensure that the SLAs are met on time. I get the alerts if something is not on track. I can take an action. In I'll tell you, especially in the COVID scenario last year, when we had a brief period where the volumes were not managed appropriately, we were able to use Smart Work Manager to kick off more instances of bots to ensure that the whole volume was managed, and there was little or no customer impact by end of the sort of cycle. So it's important that people not just think about creating automation, but also how to manage it, because that's where things can fall out. You may have a great automated process, but you're not able to still fulfill the request on time because your reporting and MI system and your work management system is not geared up for this change. So I'll take a pause. But what I wanted to share today was really how important it is to have a solution which can manage the digital workforce and human workforce together. So hybrid workforce is future, and we believe working with Verint, we have a solution in place which can help our clients to achieve that.
Well, thank you very much, Sumit. That was a great case study, and very futuristic, I think, for a lot of organizations that, the digital workforce is now here and now. What we've been, well, one challenge I'm wondering is, how did your existing employees, adapt or accept the fact that suddenly there's all these digital workers that they're working beside? I know some people have concerns that if a bot breaks, the human might get blamed. There might be not a way to track where the fault was. How did you get them on board with having these new digital coworkers?
So I'll use the same example for our utilities client, because as we were ramping up, we realized there will be few challenges, right? So one is just this whole change management, and the first problem in people's mind were what will happen to our jobs. That was the first challenge. We had to make sure that there is a change management they understand. But the second, I think, what we realized was that these people are still going to be the key, but in different roles. They are going to now manage these bots. They're going to ensure that the bot has the right knowledge to process these transactions, and they are going to monitor them on an ongoing basis. So we created you can say, almost a bot management workforce, which were trained, and now they become almost like coaches. And that's what I was calling AI coaches, because depending on what kind of technology you are using, their role has really changed. And people initially were hesitant, but I think they all came around that their role is going to change. And something like a work manager really helps, because they don't have to go through each sort of digital workforce and figure out what's happening or what's not happening. They can have a system in place where they can see what's working, what's not. They can check the accuracy results in the quality management module and ensure that they're on top of what's happening. So I think people, when we started to today, people really want to face. They really want to be helping us out in transforming. 3 years ago, they were hesitant, but time has changed.
True, times are changing. Another challenge we've heard from customers is when they're implementing the bots, they sort of get the easy implementations, the automate the cut and paste here, or, go out and extract data from 3 different systems to populate a form. But as you were saying, you're looking at the end-to-end customer journey. We've seen people having trouble scaling their robotics program across enterprises and across complex processes. What are some of the challenges or maybe best practices you could share on how to, go from that little pilot, that little, implementation to a larger scale implementation?
Yeah. So I think what what we realized very early in the journey, and it's probably been a revelation over the last 3 years, is people used automation to fix some or automate, as you said, some simple repeatable tasks, right? And it
Yep.
almost became band-aids. They were not fixing the process, they were putting band-aids wherever they could find a amenable area for automation. What we work with our clients is really to look at the process end to end. And as I said, you have to look at the data flow. So if your data is coming in a much more structured and cleaner fashion, you can use analytics and automation together so that you can have a much more streamlined process and put the automation at the right steps. I'll give you one example which we did for a client where when we initially thought we had to use about 20 bots to automate that process. That
Mm-hmm.
process was basically validating meter reads, and the bot had to go through the history, validate the meter reads. But what we did was we created an analytics model upfront which makes this determination, and the bot role is very simple, which is just to post the outcome. So that 20 bots just became one, and the process became much more streamlined and much more easier to manage. So I think it's about looking at the process more end to end, fixing how the data is flowing through the system, and creating, I would say, decision points can be managed by analytics. Anything which is required for systems to be updated or systems to be fed into, data has to be fed in, you can use automation. And today it's not just RPA. Now we have many other modes of automation sort of coming in. You can use APIs to automate. You can use some of the BPM platforms to automate. So I think now
Mm-hmm.
these automation is becoming slightly more broader term. 3 years ago, people used to call automation as only RPA.
True. Very true. But automations, like any technology, sometimes they break. Um, do you keep employees skilled in the ways that the processes were done previous to the automation? So in case an automation breaks, you have a backup that can fill that hole until you're able to fix it?
So I'll give you answer in both. So initially, I think that was the case how we started. But
Mm-hmm.
when you have a smaller scale, it's perfectly fine. You can pick up those volumes. You can do some overtime. You can do some weekend working, and still things sort of move. But as we have scaled, so in that utility client, we have 200 bots. Now, if those are going to
Yeah.
fail, I don't think we will have 200 people to sort of, or maybe 100 people to sitting free, and they'll be able to manage volumes, right? So I
True.
think that's where how do you manage those bots becomes important. So as soon as we see a red in that screen you saw, if we see a red, it they go the ticket is raised, and a bot support person will look at it. Most of the people in operations now are skilled enough to find out usual problems. If it's a slightly bigger problem, for example, some screen has changed in the client's environment, something big has happened, we
Mm-hmm.
tend to fix it within the SLAs we have agreed with our client. But if you ask me, have we got some challenges in the last 2 years? Yes, there have been a few challenges, but we've been always able to fix it within 24 to 48 hours. So the operations has actually been not impacted. And again, I'll quote this COVID example because humans became difficult because we had to move from office to home. And in India, we had to move almost 30,000 people, which took a week or two. But bots were operational, and we could manage the work very, very well for the clients who were slightly mature in their journey.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 30,000 people in 2 weeks. That was quite the accomplishment. Um, you know, uh, when when you're managing the workloads and the bots have certain tasks that they have to do, again, if, like the example you gave, a customer changes their UI and things aren't where they used to be and it breaks the process, the work that's been queued up for that robot, um, is there a way within, the work manager tool that it gets pushed automatically to a different queue so that either a different robot or a human now takes up that work? How do you manage the workload that was assigned to that bot?
I think the critical part is the SLA, right? So what is the customer expectation? So if the customer expectation we can manage by fixing the bots, that's okay. But if the customer expectation is, for example, due today, we will flex our operating staff to ensure that we still complete that task, though the bot may not be operational, but we prioritize it. So in operations, I think this whole notion about what's important and to be completed today, I think that's where a work manager helps, because I know what's due today at what time, and I can flex my resources automatically. And typically it happens automatically in most cases, but even if not, the operations has visibility of what's right in front of them, so they can make those calls and take the decisions of flexing people from one part of operations to the other. But in most cases, I will really say very few times they've had to put more humans in to fix. We have been able to recover the bots in time to process those
Mhm.
requests.
That's great. That's great. I know with managing back office operations, you do have those peaks and valleys, and being able to call on resources from a different group that might have similar skills back in. Some organizations are challenged with that because they're still sort of operating in little silos. This team does this type of work. This team does that type of work. The work moves along thing. I know, can you explain how with Work Manager you're able sort of to break down those silos so the skills, you can see who's skilled in what, and maybe when you have those moments where you need to pull in somebody else to cover a queue that had maybe a spike in volumes, or like you said, an automation blip. How does that help you understand who's available and who has the right skills to do the work?
Yeah. So I think two things. One is outside work manager, which is our own ability of or experience of managing operation over the years. So we understand these challenges can happen, and you need to be prepared. And our training and knowledge management ensures that the people have the knowledge. But the second thing is, when this happens, how do you know it, and how do you allocate the work? So in Work Manager, we attribute all the agents with the skills. So you may be trained on Q1, you might be proficient to level B, you might be trained in Q2 and proficient in as level C. That helps because once I have to route the volume, the system is intelligent enough to route the volume to the right people at the right time. So, and honestly, we have configured this. We really don't even think about it. It's only when the new batch gets trained, the training manager updates the skill sets, and that's it. So I don't think on a day-to-day basis we even think about who is trained on what skill, because the system does it for them.
Which for a lot of companies, that would be just, that alone would be an aha moment. And as you said,
Yeah.
to be able to let that manager sit back and kind of relax and say, okay, I have everything on my dashboard. I know what's going on. I know what my volumes are going to be and who my people are, and I can manage the workloads to those SLAs. Sumit, this has been a great story. I really appreciate your joining us today, and to share that with our audience. Um, and those of you joining, if you have any more interest in our Work Manager solution, I suggest that you visit www.verint.com/backoffice. We have a host of resources there that you can view. And Sumit, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.